Hey, real quick, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been feeling like your brand needs a little love, but you're not quite sure where to start, I have just the tool you need. The Standout Brand Audit Bot is an AI-powered guided audit that shows you exactly what's working, what's not, and how to strengthen your brand using my proven Standout brand system. In 10 minutes or less, you'll walk away with clear next steps to move your brand forward with purpose. It's completely free. Just head to the show notes to grab the link and get started. In today's online business world, community is more essential than ever, but it's never felt harder to build. Kelsey Green helps people create the kind of meaningful, supportive relationships that we all need. I'm talking real circles of community rooted in trust, alignment, and belonging. Whether you're navigating a transition, craving deeper friendships, or simply trying to find your people in a noisy, disconnected world, Kelsey helps you build that circle from the inside out. Kelsey is also a friend and former client of Specht Co, and I am so excited to have her on the podcast today to talk about building community, her story of rebranding with Specht Co, and how that was a really emotionally transformative experience for her, and something that she's super passionate about, which is getting off of our screens. This is a really great conversation about the intersection of community, branding, mental health, and really just taking care of yourself as a business owner. I think this is a super important episode and a super important message for all online business owners to hear, and I hope that you enjoy it. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the Six Figure Brand Society. Today, I'm super excited. I have my friend, former client, and community strategist, Kelsey Green, with us today. Thanks for being here, Kelsey. You want to start by just giving us a quick little intro of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, Morgan. Well, it's so fun to be on your podcast because we work together. We're in some of the same circles. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to connect with your audience today. So as you mentioned, my name is Kelsey Green. A lot of my handles are Kelsey L. Green, my middle name. And currently I work with different groups of people, primarily women, but all people. And I focus on community building and hosting things like masterminds and walking people through a digital course called How to Build Your Circle about in-person community. Through that, I have met so many great people and just had a great time in this space.
Yeah, I can attest that Kelsey's great at the community thing. And like she said, we did a branding project for her coming up on 2 years ago now. It's been a while. So we're going to get into that. But first, can you tell us a little bit of like how you got into running your own business, what you did previously and what that transition looked like?
Sure. Yep. So my background is in communications and environmental conservation. So my master's and my undergrad both were in environmental management. And I worked in that space for a while. I was a scientist. I was out in the field and that was really fun for a while. But my work really led me to working with people, really focusing on the way that people interact, community, communications, outreach. And then I transitioned into the nonprofit space, and some of your clients, listeners, may have had the experience with nonprofits where you can achieve a little bit of a burnout scenario. And that was absolutely the case for me. I was doing great work. I was working with great people in the environmental conservation space, but really hit a pretty serious rock bottom with burnout in the field. Because the pay was so low, I was actually running a side business at the same time, which did serve me well in the long term. But at the time, was very challenging. And then it was COVID. I was in a toxic relationship. I had some physical stuff going on. I needed a big time surgery. So it was really just kind of coming to this place of reckoning where you hit one of those rock bottoms in your career and your life and you need to do a little redirect. So I still do work with different clients in a communications capacity, but right now my focus is really on working with groups of women and speaking about things like digital minimalism and in-person community.
Awesome. Yeah, I think most of us have experienced a reckoning, like what you're saying, in all sorts of different ways. I mean, for me, it was having my kids. For a lot of people, it's when they finally decide to leave that 9 to 5. So I think we can all relate. So, like I mentioned, we did a branding project together. You have done a phenomenal job of like building upon what we created and kind of keeping that momentum going. So I want to talk a little bit about what that process looked like from your perspective. Let's start with what led you to decide that you needed to invest in branding, because you have a ton of knowledge in branding, would qualify you as also a brand strategist, but you still came to me. So tell us about that.
Thanks, Morgan. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because what's that quote? The cobbler's shoes or whatever, right?
Yep. The cobbler's kid never has any shoes or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was definitely the case for me. I was working with various clients and helping them through their branding processes. I'm not a designer, so, that is one of the reasons, of course, I came to you. So I would hire this stuff out for people, and I would try to kind of strike that balance between helping them to get something going pretty quickly and not get stalled out in the weeds of this, because as I think you and I know, people can really procrastinate on doing the work with things like getting their invoicing set up or, oh my God, I can't decide on the logo. And then it's a year later and you haven't done anything with your business, right? Because you're still deciding on the logo, that kind of stuff. So helping to like kind of get people going, make some decisions and push them along was definitely part of my body of work. And at the same time, truthfully, a lot of my business came from word of mouth. I was working in a pretty niche-y, a very specific realm. And so a lot of my clients were just kind of finding their way to me, which was wonderful and great. But when I decided I wanted to open things up and make this, a serious part of my business, I did want my own brand. And I came to you because you were so highly recommended within our circles and loved your work. And you also seem like you are able to really create different kinds of branding, for different kinds of people. I feel like sometimes designers have a very distinct style that, you go to them because you like that like old style tattoo look, whatever it is, right? But you really, I felt like could pull out the essence of the client and create for that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that I tell people, I'm like, I don't have a style, and it's a blessing and a curse for sure, because I can't say I'm the designer for feminine whimsical brands or whatever, but I am the designer who can make whatever you need it to be.
Yeah.
And who can also like weave in that strategy piece. So we're not just making a pretty brand. And I think for me, working with you was so fun because you understood all of that strategy so well that we could like kind of hit the gas a little bit and like be a little more collaborative than somebody who is like, what is brand strategy? So that was really an exciting new thing for me that doesn't happen with most clients. And I do enjoy educating people on that piece. But it was just, that was like something that was really unique to me. Is your brand feeling a little off? Like your visuals, messaging, and your overall vibe just are not lining up with where your business is headed? You probably don't need another pretty logo. You actually need a solid strategy behind your brand. That's exactly what we'll build together inside the Standout Brand Strategy session, a one-on-one deep dive into your brand foundation so that you can finally show up with clarity, consistency, and confidence. And if you're thinking about working with Specht Co on branding or web design, this is your first step for every single project that we do together. Clients who have gone through this process have tripled their audience size, doubled their revenue, and raised their rates by 30% or more. Use the link in the show notes to book your session, and don't forget to enter code SFBPOD at checkout to save $100.
Yeah, I'll just echo what you're saying real quick, Morgan, because I think that is really fun when people come together, and even if people don't know a lot about strategy, can appreciate the concept, and it's so critical. I've been following some of your work, and I know that now it looks like you're doing you no exceptions. You have to do the strategy piece first, and I 100% wholeheartedly agree. And I think that people just because many people don't quite understand it, they don't realize how fun it can be. I think that's like one of the most fun parts is the strategy and it's just the concepts behind it, right? And your intentions. And people can get really freaked out about that, but I love that part.
Yeah, it's strategy can be like a little bit of a 4-letter word for people, I feel like. But I can tell you every single time that I wrap up a strategy call, I just did one last week, every time people are like, oh my gosh, that was so fun. I learned so much about myself. Like I have all this like new ideas and new energy. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, strategy sounds hard and scary.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a lot of work, but that's why you come to me is because I make it not hard.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember our process and it was pretty fun. I actually took your packet, the strategy part camping, and I was doing it on the side of at this beautiful state park, like up, in Washington by the sea, and like doing the work by the ocean because I had wanted my brand to feel like movement that was not maybe fully expressed yet, but a little bit under the surface, and watching the water and these tides and the movement of the water was really helping to inspire that. So anyway, the point is, it was so fun for me that I took this camping and like did my work by the sea.
Yeah. And that totally came through in your branding. Like we kind of went back and forth between like, is this like a topographical map or are these waves or it doesn't really matter? But that movement comes through very, very visually in your brand. So that's always cool to see. And I think that's one of the benefits of working with somebody that really is an expert in this stuff versus someone that's going to say, oh, you tell me what you want and I'll make you a pretty brand, is that I can pick out all those little nuances or like you mentioned this one thing once and you didn't even realize you said it. It was like a cornerstone of your brand.
Yeah. And I guess since we've worked together, I feel like things have rapidly changed in the AI space for design. And I just feel like I'm so grateful to know that like my branding and my logo is designed by a person that I know. Not to say there's not value in AI, whatever, not making any commentary here, but I just really appreciated because I've run logo contests before and I have hired designers and like, I don't know. For me, it feels wonderful and important to know that this is like from a person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, a logo designed by somebody that you know, but also somebody that knows you. I spend a lot of time trying to get to know you beyond surface level because that's what your brand needs to do. Your brand needs to help your audience get to know you so that they can like you and trust you and hire you. And AI or a designer on Fiverr or whatever like quote budget option just can't do that. So that's a really good segue. You have mentioned a couple times how the branding process for you was really so much more than just getting your brand designed on like a personal and emotional level. So would you share with us however much you're willing to share with us about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Truthfully, this was unexpected. Even having done this work myself, even having walked clients through brand strategy and having, and have felt that emotion in those spaces, I honestly wasn't expecting it. I thought it was going to be a very pragmatic, cool, because you're cool, to work with. But I thought it was just going to be kind of straightforward, like getting this thing done. What ended up happening was you and I started the process. Again, had a ton of fun throughout. And then my long-term relationship ended in the middle of that branding process. And I think this would have been the case even if this breakup hadn't have happened. But it really became something that was a little bit like an anchor in my life. And it's so personal, the branding, right? It's emotional, it's personal. And because of all these kind of in-depth questions that you're asking, it really is like a little bit of a process to go through what it is that you are trying to bring into the world in your intentions. So we wrapped up our process as that was all happening. Thankfully, you're also very good about deadlines and you're very on it and you do a great job of kind of working with the client because, as someone who works with clients who are busy and a little bit disorganized, it's like you always have these little reminders and things, but your process is so streamlined and great that it was like I was able to stay on track more or less like through this. And that was wonderful because when I was really in the depths of post breakup was actually when we launched. And I remember doing my brand launch, all my social media posts with like just a absolutely destroyed broken heart. And it was like literally the one like little light that was happening at that moment. And then when I launched and put the brand out live, I got such incredible feedback from people. And that was like just such a wonderful thing to experience in that super duper dark time.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel way with my business as a whole. You know, I am a military spouse. My life is getting uprooted constantly. And my business is like the one thing that is always the same that I can kind of hold on to like a life raft. And maybe that's not the healthiest thing, but it works for me. And I think it sounds like it was kind of a similar thing with you. It's also such a good lesson in letting people support us.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it would have been very easy for you to be like, hey, I have some life stuff going on. Can we take a pause? And I would have said yes. But then you would have sat and like wallowed in your broken heart and probably stretched it out longer. And maybe you would have came back around to the project, but maybe not. And then it would have became this huge like mountain for you to tackle versus just saying, okay, I'm going to let this be the light in my life for now, and I'm going to use it to get a little introspective and think about like, who am I and what do I care about and what am I trying to do now that I've gone through this big life transition. And then, like you said, you launched and all these people are saying, oh my gosh, Kelsey, this is so beautiful. You're so amazing, blah, 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 blah. You have to give people the opportunity to love on you. And that only happens by putting yourself out there.
Yes. And, you know, this is a great point. And also I'll just kind of lean in on this point as a pragmatic point for people too, is that when you pay the money, you go through the process and then you have something cool like this, like leverage the heck out of it. Right? To get that feedback because people are pumped. I mean, especially with branding, I feel like people like love it. Like I will spend so long if people are like, hey, I'm trying to decide between this or that, or like, oh, I'm in the branding process. I'm like, oh, let me be part of this. Even if, you know, it's someone I've never met, like exciting. People love the branding, but also like to your point, people love to see what's going on. They love, I mean, especially my friends who knew I was going through a super hard time, they're like, bravo, like, wow. I even got a message that was like, I can't believe you're actually doing this right now, you know? And just to get that feedback and support is really cool. And also, you know, you only do branding or rebrands, whatever, every so often. So like just leverage the absolute crap out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually such a good segue into the next topic I want to talk about, which is community. So you are a big community girl. And I know that just from like following you personally. We're from like a similar area in Washington. So every time Kelsey's like, oh, I'm out doing this like community service thing here or hiking there. And I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. I used to do that. But you're very involved in your community, both in person and online. How did you come to be that way? Because I think a lot of us, especially most of our listeners, are online business owners, and we sit on our couch and work by ourselves all day, and we become very siloed. And then we say, well, I'm an introvert or whatever. I am, that's fine. But like, we still need our people. So what advice do you have? And how did you become to be such a well-grounded and also very community-oriented person?
Thanks, Morgan. Well, that's so funny because I've been thinking a lot lately about that quote. I got into business to work for myself, but not by myself. Mm-hmm. And that can happen so often, right? Where, like you mentioned, especially if you're in the digital space, you're an online entrepreneur, that you are just by yourself, like, you know, in your living room, not even in maybe a proper office space. At your kitchen table, whatever, just working, and it can feel so freaking lonely. So there's that piece of it. But honestly, just in life, for whoever we are, whatever kind of work we're doing, the data is becoming very clear that, you know, with the rise of the smartphone, obviously all the streaming platforms, we are just becoming more isolated in general, more siloed. And with that, seeing a lot of mental health struggles, physical health struggles that can happen from isolation and loneliness. And this is only going to become more and more of an issue, right? As we have more and more fancy, cool tech. So for community building, in terms of my past, I'm an only child. I grew up with a single mom. We moved around a ton. And so I learned maybe some ways that are a little bit rooted in trauma, but I did learn some very adaptive strategies for making friends quickly. And that has served me both in a PR communications capacity, right? But also in life. I just have always invested in groups, in people, but this is becoming just more and more important to me. I don't have kids, and looking at the ways that our relationships feed us and fuel us and support us throughout our lives. And we can really fall into these little, even if you're not alone, these little silos where it's like, oh, I only hang out with, the parents of my kids' friends, or I only hang out with my work friends, or whatever it is. And building a thriving community of actually people, physical people around us, I think is just so, so critical.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, serves you so well in both a professional and a personal capacity.
Yeah.
Like most of my business comes from referrals. And how do I get those? By making friends who are also business owners. But you have to do it genuinely, right? I can't go into like, whether it's in person or online, like these networking groups and be like, I'm here to get 10 referrals this month. It has to be from a place of like, no, I really want to meet people. I want to connect with them. I want to find out some weird thing that we have in common that we can keep coming back to. And if a new client comes out of that in some roundabout way, great. And if not, the value is the community.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. It is interesting and a little bit challenging, right? As a business owner. And I will say, if you just want to pump out some like referral type, scenarios, like B&I, those groups, like you can join that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like you can get that. But to your point, yes, actually connecting. And I think one of the through lines of this conversation is that you can do business and you can have that connection, right? You can have that friendship and have mutual respect and understanding. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And so I always definitely try to seek that out in business and in relationships. And I feel like getting out there and practicing this in your life can only benefit you in these other kinds of relationships, right? In business, in like these weak ties that you might have with neighbors, people at the store, whatever it is. But making sure to keep feeding those embodied experiences as our presence online grows.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, similarly to you, I was an only child. I also was like my grandparents that I was closest with as a kid. I was their only grandchild. So there were like no other kids around me. So I got really good at connecting with adults and not good at all at connecting with people my own age. So I would like cry on the first day of school every day through like fourth grade because I was like, there's all these kids and they're already friends with each other and I don't know how to talk to them. And like, I just want to go hang out with the teacher at recess.
Yeah. Oh.
And it really took until I was in high school and I got my first job in retail and literally had no choice but to walk up to a stranger and be like, hi, welcome to the Gap. Are you finding everything okay? To kind of not to be like too blunt, but like beat that shyness out of myself. And now I have a 2.5-year-old daughter who is the world's biggest extrovert. We cannot walk down the street without her finding somebody and saying, hi, what's your name?
Oh, cute.
So even like waiting in line at the store or whatever, now we're always starting conversations with somebody. And I think while that still feels uncomfortable for me, it's a good muscle to flex.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And this is something I teach in this course because I think we are losing this a little bit as we become more connected online and we just spend so much more time here. We do lose that ability a little bit in real life, partially because we're just on our phones a lot, right, in public. And so there's just less conversation happening, honestly, right, with strangers. But it is something that you need to practice for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, something that I definitely struggle with is I will, and lately this has happened every time I come back from a maternity leave, because I've had a few of those lately, is that I will like take a little break from being really in my business. And then I'll come back and I'll be like, I'm going to do all the networking. For me, that kind of has to be virtual right now, just due to like the season of life I'm in. So we make it work. But so I like join these networking groups and I get like 30 coffee chats on my calendar and I'm so excited about it. And then it becomes like a task for me. And then I get on a call and I'm like, wait, I'm sorry. Like, who are you and what are we supposed to talk about? And then I like feel like a jerk, right? So that's number one. And number two, I think, is we find like a group, right? If you find a networking group that you really like, or if you're like an outdoorsman, like a running group or a backpacking group or whatever, and then you think, okay, I have a community now, I'm done, and you never reach outside of that. And in business, what can happen there is, okay, so you're in this networking group that has 200 people in it. Eventually, you've connected with all 200 of those people, and they've all made all the referrals they're going to make, and all the ones that are going to hire you have already hired you. And now what? If that's your main source of business, all the clients have kind of dried up. So I think not letting yourself get like too comfortable or too stagnant, but also that balance of like not forcing it, not being like, okay, well, I need 10 calls on my calendar a week or whatever. Like that will come through. You will also burn yourself out, and you'll look kind of like an idiot whenever you don't remember how you met somebody on a coffee chat.
I have absolutely done that strategy of, I just want to meet as many people as I can, and then booked all these things and showed up, just like not fully present to that. And like, we can't always be 100% rested, hydrated, fully present for every conversation. Yeah. If you're trying to do a sheer numbers approach, that's not the way, I don't think. And I think people can, I guess I'm talking more here too about if you're trying to sell, if you're in that selling space and you're trying to recruit into whatever groups or whatever, I think people can tell that kind of thing. If your intention is not connection, whether or not they're a good fit for whatever you got going on, then I think people, can tell. So having that as a intention, I think is important for sure.
Yeah, I think so. So you talked about how with the rise of smartphones and tech, basically, that for lack of a better word, it's kind of ruining our lives and relationships a little bit.
Humanity.
Something really cool that I love called Screen-Free Sundays, and you talk a lot about digital habits and how to kind of keep some of that stuff at bay. So what are some practices that you have to not let that stuff take over? Because as online business owners, like I have a screen time alert on my phone and I say ignore on it every single day. It's helpful for me to at least know, like, okay, if that alert doesn't pop up until like 7:00 at night, it's a pretty good day. But if it pops up at 9 a.m., then like something's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's really hard as online business owners, like to find that balance of like, I do need to get away from my computer and turn my phone off and go outside and do the things. But also the screen is how I make money. So what do we do there?
I mean, these are great questions. And I will just start out by saying that this stuff is tough. It's not a fair fight. These companies have created these devices to be super duper addictive, like the same mechanisms as slot machines. So just everyone give themselves a little bit of grace. We're basically holding a hyper addictive device in our hands, and there's some things that are happening in our brains that as we have a moment of boredom and we reach for our phone, that pathway just becomes more and more concrete to the point that that's just what we're doing all the time. And then we really can't handle any moments of boredom or silence or whatever, right? So just note for everyone that this is like, if you decide to look at putting some parameters and boundaries on your digital use, like it's okay if it feels a little bit hard. But I'll just kind of tell you some of the things that I'm doing. So the first thing is I was not able to focus anymore. Full stop. I felt like I couldn't concentrate on the things I was doing, especially if it was like kind of a big, deep work kind of project or task. And in this line of work, but lots of others, you really need to have some of that focus time. I mean, a quick aside, Morgan, I just have like always been so impressed by the way that it seems like you are able to focus in for like these chunks of time. Like we did a VIP Kajabi day together and I was like, wow, just, so this might not be your problem, but I know it is for some people.
2 years ago, I would have said like, I can't relate. Like I definitely don't have ADHD. Like I can like lock in on something to the point where I'm like, oh, it's been 6 hours and I haven't drank water or peed or like eaten anything. So it's kind of an opposite problem.
Yeah. And that's cool.
As soon as I had kids, that all went out the window. Like I can't get 2 hours uninterrupted to save my life. So I think we all probably have a similar experience, but maybe caused by different things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'll just note that, if you look at the research, which is prolific and very available, if we're talking about just smartphones, when we check these notifications, have notifications over and over and over and over and over again in a day, that does increase, the probability that we're not going to be able to focus on these tasks, right?
Mhm.
Our brains are just used to this fractured kind of attention, our dopamine levels are being impacted, et cetera. So putting some parameters around your use is so important. And one of the easy ways to do it is to literally just put your phone out of sight.
Okay.
So there's a paper called The Brain Drain that shows that if your phone is in sight, even if your phone is face down, like let's say if you're doing a deep work task or you're trying to connect with someone else, even if it's someone else's phone face down, you are just less able to focus. You're less present. And if you're trying to connect with someone or connect with your work, it's just going to be harder. So putting your phone away, obviously that means silencing your notifications. If you have, kids or aging parents or any kind of thing that you need to come through, you can set those settings, right? You can make it such that any calls from certain people can break through. And then really trying to get off your phone as you get closer to bedtime is so critical. It's just, we've seen the data. Everyone's heard it about the light and scrolling and how terrible this is for our sleep. And the experiment I do with myself is my goal, doesn't happen all the time, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., no phone. So it's like in my closet with ringer on extra loud for my mom, for my stepdad. If there's an emergency, I'm about to join search and rescue. So any of those calls will come through. But otherwise, no notifications.
Yeah.
And this has changed my sleep life. I mean, I can't even tell you. I used to think that I was an insomniac and that I just was a bad sleeper. And I think I was just doing things like, I was drinking a lot of wine at night.
It doesn't help.
But I was also just watching Netflix and scrolling my phone till who could know when, and then trying to go right to sleep. And, it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple things with that. So first of all, if I know people are listening and they're like, oh, but not me or whatever.
Yeah.
Just try it, because I can tell so I wear a Garmin watch and it gives me a sleep score every night. It's usually pretty bad because I have 2 kids that wake me up all night long. But the nights that I'm on my phone right up until bedtime versus the nights that even I just put my phone away an hour before and I'm still watching TV with my husband. I'm not even screen free, but I'm just not glued into my phone.
Yeah.
It's so it gives you a score 0 to 100. It's a 10 to 15 point difference. And for me, having a number I can look at is helpful because I'm it's probably just a placebo effect. I'm just telling myself that I feel better. But no, there are things happening in my body that are telling me that this makes a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have the whip strap and I like this one because there's no screen, which is can be annoying when someone's like, what time is it? And you're like, I don't know. I don't have a screen on, but, and I don't want to check my phone, but the numbers do show you that. And I think that's been one of the biggest drivers for me in terms of health and wellness in general is seeing the data. Oh, wow. There's actually a huge difference in things like resting heart rate and heart rate variability when you get off your phone earlier, when you just try to go to bed earlier, when you drink less, when you drink more water, all kinds of things, right? And I don't know about the Garmin, but mine has those metrics that you track, how long before bedtime did you get off of your phone? Things like that. Yeah. And
I think the other thing, so you said, you try to be phone free from 7 to 7, right? You're not going to bed at 7. I would assume that you're probably going to bed 9, 10, 11. So that's 3 to 5 hours at night that you get to do something that is actually serving yourself, whether that's go sit in the bathtub or do a puzzle or read a book or connect with a friend or whatever. I think we tell ourselves, oh, I don't have time for hobbies or this or that or whatever. Yes, you do. You're just spending that time doing something else. We have a business coach in common that we both work with. And one of her things is when somebody says, oh, I don't have the money, what they are sometimes, not always, saying is, it's just not a priority for me right now. And that's fine. I think it's the same as when we say, oh, I don't have time. Sometimes we legitimately don't have time, but sometimes we would just rather spend that time on TikTok.
Yes. And I will say for these screen-free Sunday challenges that I run, I do a survey and almost always people say, wow, I sure have a lot more time than I thought I did. right? There's a
Mhm.
lot more hours in the daytime than I thought. And I'll just bring up a kind of a critical point. So if anyone's interested in learning more about this, there's this book called Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. And the term can be really scary, digital minimalism, but really all it means is making sure that your use of tech supports your core values, right?
Mhm.
And that you have this ethos around it. One of the things he talks about is really replacing the scrolling and the streaming, even partially with high quality hobbies.
Mhm.
And these are things that maybe you're doing with your hands. These are things like, even connecting with people, book club, volunteering, service work, whatever it is. And it's interesting because he makes an argument that based on the research, you think you're tired, you feel like, oh, I just need some rest. I kind of want to like zone out. You think that it's going to be restful for your brain to scroll or to stream or whatever, because you can kind of get into that like zoned out state. But
Mhm.
really, your brain is having to process a lot of information when you're scrolling, even streaming. And there's a lot of things happening. So even though you're just laying there in this zombified state, your brain is still having to do a lot of work. And as you can imagine, this leads to this sort of negative feedback loop where then you're more tired and then you feel like you need like more rest, scroll more, right? And if you replaced it with something like woodworking, gardening, even just reading, like you can still be consuming content, but at a different pace.
Mhm.
You would feel a bit more rested, grounded, kind of ready.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that because I was just gonna say if we really like get real with ourselves, I think that most of us would say that we don't actually enjoy sitting on our phone and scrolling for 2 hours a night. Like it doesn't make us happy. It's just something to do because we don't want to get up and go do something else. For a little while, my husband and I got really into Legos. You can like see them all in the background. And like
Oh,
when I'm building Legos or baking or like doing something, I can't look at my phone. And it was kind of for me like the reverse where I was like, oh, I want to do this thing. And then a byproduct of that was not looking at my phone for 3 hours. And then you're
right.
like, oh, wow, that was nice. And like, I feel like I'm ready to get up and go do something now. Like, I feel
Yeah,
rejuvenated because I've used my brain in a different way.
totally. Totally. Yep. That's a great example.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I have heard it said that food addiction is one of the hardest addictions to kick because it's the only thing that you can't cold turkey, right? Like if you're on drugs or drinking alcohol or gambling, I don't want to say just to like minimize this, but you stop doing the thing and the end, right? But you can't stop eating. Similarly with
Mm-hmm.
screens, like we don't live in
Yeah.
a time where it is realistic to just cold turkey the screens. Like
Yeah.
there's no way around it. And I think for the parents out there, like that's a really difficult thing to grapple with. My kids get a lot of screen time and we'll see how that affects them when they're adults. But it has been so hard for me to navigate of like, I would love to be a screen-free family. But the reality of it is that they are growing up in a world where they're going to be surrounded by screens for the rest of their
Mm-hmm.
life. And I want them to like know how to navigate that.
Yeah.
And I have seen where like I have friends who are like a hardcore no screen time family. And they will be some like the doctor's office that has a TV playing and they cannot pull their kids away from that
Yeah.
TV. No
Yeah.
matter, even if it's like a commercial, like something that's not even for kids. My daughter gets to watch TV like basically when she wants. She has a tablet that she plays games on. Like she's only 3, so we try and have some parameters around it. But whenever I tell her, hey, it's time to turn the tablet off, we're going to go to the park, she says, okay, mommy. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that we get scared about like the screen time and stuff. And we're like, I just need to have none or my kids can't have it ever. And I think like you said with the digital minimalism thing, it's really more about like creating a healthier relationship with it than it is cutting yourself off entirely.
Yeah, and I can't speak to parenting, but I will just note for everyone that the book The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt is one of the best, foremost books on parenting, especially as your kids get a little bit older. And I will say it scared the shit out of me and I don't even have kids. So for parents, like, yeah, I feel for you. Like it's a thing. It's a thing to consider and it's a thing to read about. And I know there's limited time in the world, but this is important. And I think that's a great place to start. So yes, I mean, honestly, again, it's kind of a different scenario for kids, their little kiddo brains. For
Yeah.
adults, I mean, if it's hard for adults, it's like, how would you expect your kids to moderate their own screen time with, their developing brains? I don't know. But for us, yes, it is. Yes, to your point, we can't just cold turkey. Even if we weren't online business owners, we couldn't just say like, no, thanks, no screens anymore. I'm just going to stop and not drink anymore, But like, I don't think we can even fly anymore without our boarding
No.
passes being digital, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just not really feasible. And this is even more of an argument for why we need to put those boundaries in place and why we need to work pretty hard to manage them, And if you have a business online, one of the things that is not going to be surprising to anyone probably is that it's easy to really concede all of your autonomy, to the digital space because you have a business. And I think this is kind of a lazy way to approach it. Like, I think we all know if you can't step away from your business for whatever amount of time, like let's say a Sunday, your business is running you. Like you are not running your business, right? And, just because you do need to be doing some stuff online doesn't mean you need to be doing all the things online all the time. Doom scrolling, whatever. I mean, I don't know how many times I've jumped on to post a piece of content. All you need to do is post, share stories, do some engagement and get off. And it's 2 hours later and I've done that. And then I've effed around in Instagram forever. I'm like researching the best restaurants in New York City. I'm not even planning a trip to New York City. You know what I mean? I'm just like deepen.
Yeah. And you mentioned this back when we were talking about logo design and stuff. I call it procrastinating, where you're like, oh, I have to get my bookkeeping software, or I have to get my logo just right, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. That like keeps you from doing the real work. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing. It's easy for us to say like, oh, well, I need to engage on social media. That is the reason why I set the screen time reminder on my phone, is because I have very limited time to work right now with my kids. So like my daughter goes to preschool a couple hours in the mornings. My son is still home with me. So I've got like nap time and that's it. And I would hear him wake up from his nap and be like, oh, crap. I did like schedule some content for my business, so that's legit. But then I wasted all the rest of the time scrolling on Instagram or Threads or whatever. Yeah. And I have client work that I need to do. So I think it's also like you're saying, not like kidding ourselves about like, yeah, if social media is your primary marketing platform, you need to spend some time on there. But also, what are the things that are really moving the needle in your business? They might be on a computer, but they might not be on the internet or on social media.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think we all have done that. What did you call it? Procrastinating?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, I love my calendar and I love inbox zero if you can get there. But like those two things are ways I can like really sink a bunch of time into just like kicking it in the digital space without actually doing anything. Right.
Yeah. And you tell yourself that it's productive and like, yeah, it is. But is it the best use of your time? Probably not.
And to the earlier point too, your brain still feels like, tired and like you've done stuff and you just like, need a break after all that, just the same as if you were deep working, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned your Screen-Free Sundays challenge. Tell us how we can join you on this journey before we wrap up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Screen-Free Sundays happen once or twice a month. Honestly, Morgan, 24 hours is turning out to be really hard for a lot of people, understandably. And so I'm going to be creating a little starter kit for setting digital boundaries in your life, in more of a baby step approach. I'll keep the 24-hour challenges going because people have found them so useful that have been able to complete them, or even 12 hours, whatever. So you can find that on kelseylgreen.com, my website. My Instagram handle is the same, Kelsey L. Green. I'm on LinkedIn. And those are free challenges. And I'll also be working on just some more kind of analog activities that you can build into your life in 2026, because, you do need to replace this stuff with something. So if you're just trying to like cut it out and there's a big void, that's going to be tough. But replacing it with things that we used to do, before we were all on these devices is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something we didn't talk a lot about, but it's super important. Like, okay, you put the phone in the drawer, now what? Right. So I think that'll be really great for people. We will have all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Kelsey, and being so open with us and sharing and giving us a good little kick in the pants to maybe like put our phones away for even just a couple hours.
Morgan, well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at Specht Co. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.